On this week's full-time roundup, things begin to take shape across the European competitions. MLS are down to the Final Four, and Danny and Matt preview what this weekend's fixtures have in store. Full-time roundup starts right now. And welcome into the full-time roundup preview review show here today, as we have
a new one,
as we have some Champions League football for you guys to recap, as well as usually our Thursday episode is a preview show into the weekend's fixtures. So we are going to cover a little bit of both for you tonight. Daniel, first of all, though, how are you doing? I have had a busy week. I just landed back in town from Denver for a little work trip, and got a chance to see some of the scores and the highlights. But how are you doing? And what were some of the highlights that you saw? I know you were able to catch a lot of these games too.
I'm doing well. I had a little holiday party, had some appetizers, had a beverage, and then went and played a footy match, got the W. So felt like prime Ronaldinho with his party days and playing a match. But the matches were fun, especially on Tuesday. I don't know if I texted you or I texted a group chat, but I was like, Champions League is drunk right now. This shit's wild. All the results that I expected just were kind of, especially in the first half, were kind of going crazy. So it was like MLS after dark almost when just shit gets real. But it was a fun one. Glad this is kind of like the second to last group stage game. So always thankful for Champions League, and especially the group stages with all the content that we get to consume, and the Golazo network's the best, just, seeing flipping between games. But is there a group that you would like to get into first?
They were all fantastic. Like you said, I saw the score line, saw the highlights or the quick highlights. Like you said, we're at the end now, and this is kind of where some of the end matches matter. Placement for first and second place teams, if teams have separated themselves from the bottom two in groups. And it's important because we touched on it a little bit last time. You don't want to be a PSG in of course the group of death and finish second place and potentially get matched up in the draw with Bayern Munich or Manchester City right out of the gate in the round of 16. So these placement games, they seem a little bit meaningless in the end, but they do matter a long way. And there are a couple of groups, of course. We have to start there potentially with Group G and the group of death. So kind of just to sum their group up, Dortmund are atop the group with a huge win. Big result against Milan. And then PSG, to take a step back, your Milan team, Daniel, is just completely falling apart. And we'll get to that in a second. But then PSG have 31 shots on goal against Newcastle, or 37 shots, on goal, 7 on target. And they get a controversial penalty in the end to kind of, escape with a point. And so this group has continually be living up to the hype from my perspective. And it's just kind of one of those groups you have to talk about.
No, absolutely. And this was one of the groups that I just could not believe what was happening. I was expecting PSG to, especially with some of the injuries that Newcastle had, especially in the midfield, to kind of, especially at the Parc des Princes, get the win here. And Mbappe did everything but win this game for PSG. And he set Bradley Barcola on a platter, not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times did he miss sitters. I couldn't believe what I was watching. But a shout out to Drew Miley, 17-year-old absolute maestro, had an assist this weekend and played another big role in Newcastle getting a big result. And Newcastle should have won. PSG got bailed out with a bullshit handball. In the 95th minute of stoppage time, and Mbappe bags a penalty. But I just don't know what to expect of this PSG team. I mean, they should have won this game, but they are just a little bit fraudulent.
Yeah, it is concerning, and we've seen, multiple times, of course, also take into account that this Newcastle team had basically 11 able bodies on the field, and that was about it. Not many subs. They've got so many injuries, and we saw that in the league as well. with a B side essentially against Chelsea. And so, to your point, Daniel, it'll come down to finishing for this team and kind of if, they're going to score their goals, right? In this instance, they didn't, and that's what cost them. But I think when they get further into the tournament, and again, they have to win, they have to at least get a result in the next match, with Dortmund to advance. Of course, they want to win the match, like I said a minute ago, and top the group. They're 3 points behind Dortmund right now. You don't want to finish second place. I think as they get further into the tournament, if they get anywhere further, it's going to come down to how Zaire Emery and Ugarte and Vitinha are going to do in the midfield, because they don't have the best defense, and they're going to give up chances and they're going to give up goals. They're going to win chances and score goals at the top with who they have. And so it's really going to be if they can, control the midfield a little bit, kind of be a little bit of a bridge between for those two, and kind of control the pace of a game when you're playing a Manchester City, or know when to kind of relieve pressure. So I think that the youngsters are just a little too young for the moment, but do they make a move, or do they kind of just embrace it? We know Luis Enrique likes to have, teams to develop. So are you going to go and take a chance and spend, a boatload of money to bring in a big time midfielder in January? That might not be the way that he wants to build it. So it'll be interesting all around to see what happens. But they definitely escaped against Newcastle, and they should have won that match.
Yeah, there's one thing we know about their owners. They are like David Tepper, not patient, and they go through head coaches like it's for fun. You've seen Pochettino get the axe, Galtier get the axe, Tuchel get the axe. I mean, we're talking 3-4 managers in 3 to 4 years. So I think this is more of a project, though, and I think they do understand that, like you said, with the young talent. And it's not just, you don't have Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe starting up top, so it's a little bit different. So there is a different perspective, but Mbappe isn't exactly patient either. And if he's not going to win the big ones, he's out. So PSG got to tread water here and definitely get a result. Now, to switch over to the other game, and you mentioned my Milan, pretty disgusting performance. But if you think about it, Giroud misses the penalty to start off the game, and David Calabria, one of the team leaders, just makes a couple really bad errors. So this game could be a lot different. Credit to Dortmund, though, another really weird team, but they got it done when they need most. You've been high on Dortmund. You've said that they might, finish and get out of the group, or at least get third. I was a little bit less high on Dortmund, but it seems like we know the bottom team is going to be a Milan, and then it's up to the other three to kind of figure out who's going to get Europa and who's going to make it to the knockout stages.
Yeah, and if you're Newcastle, of course you're vying for that second spot somehow, some way against PSG in the final. So you're rooting for Dortmund in that one, and then you have to take care of business against Milan. So it'll be interesting. I don't think it's the worst setback for Eddie Howe and Newcastle. You kind of tested the waters. You understand now that you need depth, but you're not out of it. You're not out of things entirely, right? You still have Europa League that you can go for in third place, and then you get some reinforcements in time, and it's not the end of the world for you. Daniel, another team though in Group A that could use completely out of Europe. Some people have been talking about and just kind of resetting altogether, and they currently sit fourth in their group, so they have that potential, and it's a team that you don't normally expect to kind of have in this conversation. That's Manchester United, who I don't know how you want to describe it. They kind of gave away the match. They looked good. Either way, they end up drawing Galatasaray in Turkey. They were up 2-0 at one point, 3-1 as well, and Galatasaray come back and draw that. And it sets up a really interesting final matchup against Bayern Munich at Old Trafford for Manchester United to potentially advance. And that's not something that you want to set yourself up for in the finale to kind of keep your hopes alive.
No, you do not. And I actually liked Galatasaray a lot in this match. And when they went down 2-0, I was like, shit, is this when Man U kind of gets on a roll here and they turn around their season with a convincing win? And then lo and behold, 3 goals later and a draw later, it seemed like another crisis. And obviously the second goal is completely on Onana, but I wasn't really sure about the first and the third goal. So I went to my friend, shout out Max, listener to the pod. He's an ex keeper for Siena College. And I was like, Max, is Onana in the wrong for any or more than the second goal? And he said he's pretty culpable for all three. So really tough game for him. But shout out Hakim Ziyech, another ex-Chelsea player, turns it on when it matters the most. Chelsea not even in Europe, and Hakim Ziyech is in Istanbul. Just
They leave, they score. They come to Chelsea, they don't know what the net looks like. So yes, it's a
exactly.
pretty standard.
But I mean, he's such a good set piece taker, and he's got that wand of a left foot, and he was put it on full display with 2 goals and an assist.
Yeah, he's got that left foot. He whips it into the box, and like you said, leaves Chelsea like most players do, and they start to find the back of the net. So not surprising. Onana definitely at fault for a couple shaky plays all year. You thought he was going to get some momentum, and then he makes a few more poor decisions here in this one, and you just kind of wonder where his confidence is. How does he get it back, especially from a goalkeeper's perspective? But it will be interesting. And Daniel, I know I don't want to leave out Copenhagen, who do go and get Galatasaray head to head in the final matchup here for essentially that second spot with Bayern Munich. And you kind of alluded that maybe Copenhagen can sneak in and advance. Is that something that you were actually considering, or is that just more of a nice story to talk about?
I'm just so impressed because we've kind of shitted on Celtic and other like teams that used to be good and are not anymore, and just have gotten to a point where it's pretty sad to watch. But then you got, a team like Copenhagen who, from Denmark, a very small club that a minnow, if you will, in a big C, and they tied Dortmund. I mean, I'm sorry, they tied Bayern it was at Copenhagen, I think, but they kept it close the whole time. And honestly, with like 85 minutes to go, they had a magic chance to win the game, and Manuel Neuer just takes 2 balls out of the back of the net. So that Galatasaray Copenhagen game is going to be really interesting, and I just wanted to sing their praises real quick. But to move on to another group that we wanted to talk about, we were kind of tough on Xavi. Right. We both had our say on Barcelona and the current state, and they get a much needed win, silence the haters, against a really good Porto team. And it wasn't that convincing, but they figured it out, and a win's a win, and sometimes winning cures all. So I think they're on the up and up, and they're starting to figure out how they're going to replace Gavi.
Well, they have a big matchup that we'll get to later in the show, but yeah, you would think that they kind of have ridden the ship. That was a big win, and they do top the group now and kind of secure their place in the knockout stage. First time in I think 3 or 4 years that Barcelona advances in the Champions League. So one box check for Xavi, excuse me. That was an improvement that people were looking for from last year. So he gets that done. And now, he's a big matchup against Atletico Madrid on Sunday. Can he kind of, turn the wheels again for La Liga as well, get the players playing like they were last year? Of course, the injuries everyone knows and kind of has alluded to, they're pretty banged up as well. But you kind of wonder who's going to come out of that group in second from my perspective, Daniel. Is it Porto or is it Shakhtar? Of course, Porto, one of the more perennial teams that we've seen advance pretty far in this tournament over the years. Just the way that they play and kind of, the I wouldn't say the under the radar aspect of the Portuguese league. We talk about it, every episode almost, but give your thoughts on the great storyline of Shakhtar Donetsk from Ukraine, who haven't played at home in any of their matches, potentially advancing out of the knockout into the knockout stage.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if Shakhtar or Porto advance. But the fact that Shakhtar, with all the current climate around Ukraine, playing not at home, playing in Poland for every single game, it's been really impressive. And they did lose their best player last year with Mikhailo Mudryk, and a lot of players jumped ship when that whole thing in Ukraine's going on. So, I mean, they're dealing with scraps. So credit the coach left so credit to the coaching staff, credit to the players for stepping up and, not letting the big moment scare them, and they've completely surprised me. I thought they'd probably be the worst in the group, and no, it was Antwerp all along. So sorry to our Belgian listeners, but I think Porto still advances here, but Shakhtar is a great story, and we'll see them in the Europa League.
Yeah, and they continue to just be one of those teams that continually is involved in this tournament as well. You love seeing some of those lesser known names, smaller clubs like Daniel mentioned, and some of the names that you continually see over time, or new teams coming in, and it's just great to see one of those new teams that's been here in this tournament so far as Lens. They get absolutely destroyed by Arsenal over 6-0. I think it was 4-0 after 25 minutes, if I remember correctly. And this one was done and dusted before it even began. Arsenal looked like they're, top the table in the Premier League, rolling in Champions League. Mikel Arteta, he's got his guys going. It's going to be interesting to see kind of where they go going forward. But, they're clearly one of the favorites going into the knockout stages for this tournament potentially. So they cruise. But then, we mentioned a big story in Shakhtar. Daniel, this would also be a big story, of course, not with as much, ramification behind it, but Sevilla potentially are not going to be in any European competition after the group stage. No Europa League. We kind of joke about it, but of course, they're so notoriously, prominent in that tournament when they get to it, that it's kind of surprising when they don't. So they look like, after a late winner from PSV, that they will probably miss the knockout stage this year. And then I know one team that you just wanted to shout out because we thought so much more of them in this tournament, but they've really disappointed. And I'll leave that to you to give their flowers for.
Yeah, real quick, Ricardo Pepi, all aboard the Pepi train. He finally gets his chance and he bags the game winner. So it's about damn time you play him, Peter Bosch, and play the man. Play him. Now, as you said, I do. Round of applause, Benfica, your first point. Congratulations. Took you all the way to the fifth match day, and you still scored 3 in the first half and then gave up 3 and still tied. So pretty sorry. But, a red card will do that to you. But João Mario, revenge game, scored a hat trick against his former club. So that was an interesting storyline. Also, just another quick storyline. Lazio, they were seeming in crisis. Maurizio Sarri came out and said, hey, if I need to leave, I need to leave. They get a much needed win. They're looking like they're going to go through above Feyenoord, which was a big shock for us. I think we both had Feyenoord going to the knockout stages. So it's just up to them to kind of put it together in the league now. But yeah, that's kind of all the Champions League I wanted to discuss now. Just to quickly touch on a little bit of Europa here. Group B, Marseille's 1 point ahead of Brighton going to the last match day. An absolute thriller today against Ajax. 4-3, I believe the score was, with an Aubameyang hat trick. And Ajax are bottom of the Europa League. They decided to kind of turn up in the Eredivisie recently, but they still haven't turned up in Europe. But maybe this is the best case scenario for them, to kind of let them get chugging in the league and just focus on one competition and kind of build for next year. Yeah,
I mean, the year that is for Ajax does not get any better. Their fate was pretty determined already going into this match. Marseille and Brighton were atop the table, pretty separate from everybody else, but they go out in fashionable style for the year for Ajax. Let's just put it that way. And then the other big game in Europa League, Daniel, was your Liverpool. I know it was pretty, convincing, and you guys were pretty far along, but it was good to see that, some of the players get some time and some goals and continuing to build off that, of course, that great performance against Man City. So it was nice to see them kind of go into and get a result there too. Bayer Leverkusen continue to win, and they take care of business today. West Ham as well get a point. So there's some good matchups across the board. And again, that group that you talked about, at Atalanta, Sporting,
that was big.
Sporting, so
that was
big results all over the place in the Europa League, and there's one more match day to go there as well. It'll be down to the wire for a lot of those groups, and we'll keep you posted on how those net out. But any other than Group B, anything else that stood out to you in the Europa League, or I know you had a Conference League one that you always keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, Aston Villa beat Legia Warsaw today. So it looks like those two are going to be the ones that go through for sure. And Aston Villa now are in driver's seat of the first spot in that group. Let me think. Oh, Atalanta now separates themselves 3 points from Sporting. They did draw today at Atalanta, but you were pretty high on Atalanta to start the season, and beating Sporting, I know they had a tough result this weekend against Inter, but was it against Inter? No, it was against Napoli, excuse me. But Scamacca had an absolute banger today, and he's just a great striker there. And Sporting are no slouch, so that was a good bounce back result. A draw is a pretty fair result in that match, but not really too much to go. I mean, Bayern Leverkusen win again. Shocker, right? Are you surprised?
Did
But
Grimaldo score? Because that's
no, yeah, but he totally outperformed his stats score wise, right? But yeah, no, it was a good Europa League. Glad Liverpool won. They still are playing a little bit more open than I would like to them to, but it's whatever. And I think they'll really turn it on in the knockout stages.
Well, there is so much to talk about, Daniel. Of course, the group stages are almost done, like we talked about. They'll be heading into the knockout stages in no time flat. But with that being said, we turn our attention to domestic league. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive into our predictions for all the weekends matchups. We have them across the board. Daniel put together another stellar list of matchups, although he does always try and find one that puts me to sleep. He thinks I'm old and needs a nap at some point. So there's always one of those nap games. And then, of course, Daniel will have his best bets for you for the weekend. So we'll be right back to wrap the show up. And we're back. Daniel, we mentioned at the top of the show, this is not only a review show, this is a preview show. And as always, we give you guys predictions on the matchups ahead in the week and fixtures. There are some dandies this weekend across all leagues, across both days. I'm excited. There's also some MLS that we want to cover real quick and get you guys updated on it as they are down to their final four. Drum roll, please. That is a big deal in U.S. sports. Wonderful. Cool. Got that off our chest.
Huge.
All right, and we jump in. Let's jump into it, Daniel. Give us our
pause
first
real
matchup.
quick, though. Pause. Did you say dandy matchups? Is that
I
what
did
you
say
said?
some dandy matchups. I always give you one.
Crowd, excuse Matt today. He is just absolutely so tired. He just used the word dandy in the absolute wrong context there. But not to bust your balls too much. We'll move on. I'm going to go first to keep you interested here. Chelsea, Brighton. You got to be a little bit nervous about this match. No?
Yeah, definitely nervous. Although the way that the performance was last weekend, I think there will be a bounce back. I would like to see one at least if you're a Chelsea fan, and hope that, the boys understood that the way that they played last weekend is not acceptable. So I do expect, and Brighton coming off a big, battle in Athens in the Europa League. I think it's a closer game than the what you're expecting here with Brighton in form. But I will say Brighton probably do get 1-1. I'll go 1-1.
Ansu Fati out for a long time.
I know.
So that's a big
I'll go
one.
1-1 though. I'll go
1-1. Okay. You guys at the back are just so bad right now.
We're terrible at the back.
And so is Brighton. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be a high scoring affair. Probably like 2-2. But
You like your goals though. So.
I do like my goals.
Yeah.
But I do think it'll be an even. It's at the bridge too. So
yeah.
That's a big
All
one.
right, Daniel. Newcastle, Manchester United. We talked about how banged up Newcastle is. Manchester United, the struggles for Onana and everything else that's been going on there. Give us your result on that one.
Newcastle's definitely wins this one.
Definitely wins it.
I think they definitely win this one. I'm gonna say Newcastle 3-1.
3-1. Wow. Manchester United continue to find ways to get results. I don't know where they come from. I think they find a way to get a point out of this one. Of course, it's at St. James's. Tough place to go play. Place will be rocking.
That's the edge, too. That's why.
Yeah. 1-0 Newcastle. Close.
Oh, so a little scrappy affair?
A little scrappy affair. And I think,
okay.
yeah, 1-0. 1-0.
I'm cool with that. Now, probably it should be one of the games of the week, but just due to circumstances, with injuries, City versus Spurs, I think City's absolutely gonna romp Spurs. Unfortunately, you've mentioned on the pod multiple times, Ange Postecoglou does not change his formation tactics for anybody. They're gonna play the high line, and could get ugly. I'm gonna say 4-0.
City against the high line is not what you're looking for. And if he plays that way, not only will it be Holland in behind, but Pep will send a midfielder, a late runner that will
Yeah,
beat the line, or he'll do
doing
something.
Alvarez probably.
Yeah, he'll do something. This is not even really close to me. I think it's 3-0 and a
3-0.
generous 3-0. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, City did look pretty vulnerable at the back though against Leipzig midweek. So either
Maybe
Pep's
he
gonna,
gets one.
yeah, maybe
Son gets
one.
one.
You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see.
All right, Daniel. Barcelona, Atletico Madrid. We talked about this one in the earlier part of the show. Does Xavi get a big time win that he needs here?
I think this game's gonna be really ugly. God, I think I'm gonna back Atletico Madrid here. I'm gonna say 1-0.
I'm going to say 2-0 Madrid. Madrid were my pick for winning La Liga. This is one of those games that they have to win. Of course, they're 4 points behind Girona and Madrid tied at 35 points. I think Madrid are are much better form right now. They're playing really, really well. They're starting to kind of get, a little bit of shape under what Simeone wants to do. I think he's playing a little bit more offensively this year too. Not so many 1-0 draws. I think what he's gotten are players that he believes he can count on to make, the runs back when needed, not just stand forward and be offensive minded. I think that's what one of the issues was with João Felix. He just was thinking more offensively. But I think Simeone's found a balance with this team of attackers and defenders and at all positions, not just attackers and defenders, if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Give me 2-0 Madrid in this one.
Did you see that video for Kelme getting?
No, I did not. Oh, man of the match. Yeah. Crying.
He didn't believe it. Yeah, that was
yeah.
a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. So to move on to the next one, a big one in Germany, probably the biggest game, maybe the second biggest game of the weekend, Bayer Leverkusen versus Borussia Dortmund. What do you think, Matt?
We don't know what Dortmund we expect. We say this every time we try and predict what's going to happen for them. And of course, man, Bayer is strong right now, but at some point they've got to falter a little bit. Not necessarily lose, but they can't win every game. I see a draw here. I do see a draw. 2-2 draw though. We know Bayern or Bayer's going to score because Dortmund can't defend anybody, but I think somehow Dortmund find a way to get 1 or 2. I think a 2-2 draw.
I'm going to go 3-2. Bayern Leverkusen winning at home. But yeah, I think this is going to be a really fun game for at least the neutral. A lot of goals. Goals. Should be a pretty game to watch. And next we got Napoli versus Inter.
Not a lot of goals.
Not a lot of goals.
Went from a lot of goals to not a lot of goals real fast.
But it's a big one because Inter are still ahead, but Napoli are. I mean, they looked okay against Madrid, but they got a big win in Serie A last week. Are they going to keep the good times rolling? What do you think? And they're at the Maradona.
I think it's Inter's year to win. We've talked about this before. I think Inter will get the result here. Lautaro Martinez will get one at least. I'll say 2-1. 2-1 Inter.
2-1. Yeah, that's fair. Inter also rested a lot of people.
They did.
So they're probably a lot more fresh than Napoli. So I will give them the edge there. I'm going to agree, but I'm going to go 1-0, like a scrappy one.
I can see it. I definitely could see it. I mean, this is not going to be a high scoring affair. So definitely not out of the realm of possibility. A big one in France, Daniel. Just for, we know PSG is going to run away with it now that they've separated themselves a little bit, but Marseille, Rennes, I personally think Marseille are going to win this one pretty easily, but really? I know that Rennes have been stronger of late, but I think Marseille have been starting to kind of get a little bit of form after such a abysmal start to the season, and they've been looking good in Europa League. Excuse me, probably going to finish first or second in their group. So yeah, give me Marseille in this one.
I'm going to say 2-2. Rennes, with their new coach, are playing a lot better football. They have a lot of talent on that squad. So did Marseille, obviously, but they just had an absolute thriller. Both teams played today, though, so could be maybe more like 1-1 because of tired legs. But either way, I'm going with the draw. And then to wrap us off when it comes to Europe, Feyenoord, PSV. This is one of the huge games if you're going to knock PSV off their perch at Feyenoord. What do you think, Matt?
3-0 PSV.
Wow.
Season's over.
Wow.
Give him the trophy. Give him the trophy now.
That's a bold take. Okay. I'm gonna go 3-1. I'm gonna say it's more of a match, maybe like a late extra time third goal. I do think this match could be really entertaining for the neutral. I think PSV wins, but I think Feyenoord are a really good opponent. So I'm not going to say this is a walk in the park for PSV by any stretch of the imagination.
No, definitely not. But I think 7 points clear and clearly the better team in this one. They've been the best team all year in Eredivisie. I think they make a statement. I stick by it 3-0. But Daniel, there is some actual hardware that is currently up for grabs here soon in the U.S. side of things when it comes to soccer. MLS Cup is down to its final four. In the Eastern Conference, we have the Cincinnati FC, excuse me, who will be.
You're going to say the Bengals.
I almost said it. I did almost say it. Cincinnati FC will be playing the Columbus Crew, who took care of business against Orlando, and Philly lost to Cincy. Should make that the showdown in the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, you have LAFC, who I don't think many surprise here that they're this far into the tournament. They beat Seattle, and they will play the Houston Dynamo, who took care of Sporting Kansas City in their matchup. So Daniel, these games are both on Saturday, single elimination. Who is playing an MLS Cup final?
LAFC beats Houston, and the Cincy Columbus game is going to be tough. Both really good coaches, both phenomenal rosters. Derby. I didn't even think about that. Columbus, yeah, or Ohio, excuse me. I'm gonna go with. See, it's hard because Cincy have a great team on paper, but Columbus had the experience of winning not too long ago with Wilfred Nancy. Shit. I'm gonna go. Oh, they're missing Miazga. I'm going Columbus.
Miazga, what a dumb decision that was for those of you that don't know what he did. He went into the referee's locker room after the game and has been since suspended for both a 3-game suspension. So he will miss this game and the final if they advance. We're getting way too deep into the weeds on MLS here from my perspective. LAFC versus Cincinnati FC, Daniel, since he's been the best team in the Eastern Conference by a mile. I completely hear what you were saying with the experience from Columbus, but when a team is that much more superior, it's kind of one-sided in a single game elimination, although that's kind of when sometimes shit happens. But yeah, Cincinnati versus LAFC is my final. But now, Daniel, going back to Europe, because this is what the people want to hear, we really want to tell them where to put their money, because what can I say? I don't touch your pits, and that's why you're having such a strong year. So I'm going to let you kind of take this one with it and lead us out in style.
Lead us out to the sunset. So just a recap, because I didn't get to do a recap. We are 33, 24, and 8 on best bets. 8 out of 13 with parlays, up 25.25 units, and we were up +2 units last week. Should have a nice clean, not clean sweep, but up, a little bit more. But that Girona Athletic Club strikers just kept missing sitters. But it's a new week, a new day for the parlay. Risking 1 unit, we have Manchester City money line, Liverpool money line, Real Madrid money line, Bayern money line, PSG money line, a 5-legger. I honestly forgot to calculate the odds here. I think it's going to be around 2-1. So not too juicy, but I can't see any of these teams losing. I think this is an absolute lock. You can even up the unit if you want to. And then for best bets, we got 4 this week, not 5, but 4. City Spurs over 3.5, absolute smash spot. Spurs or City could cash this by themselves. Bayer Leverkusen versus Dortmund over 3.5. This is also an easy one. But Dortmund do not know how to play defense, and Bayer Leverkusen are free flowing. So I love this matchup here. Plus, Dortmund's attack has gotten a little bit better as of late. Third, Valencia Girona over 2.5. Girona is just one of these teams that love to concede, but then they score and win like 4-2. So this is a great spot for them. And then Chelsea Brighton over 3. Both teams not great at the back, but both teams attacking have caught fire as of late. So I think this match should easily be like a 3-1, 3-2 kind of match. So book it. We've been pretty hot recently, hoping to get into the 30, like plus 30 units within this week or next week. So follow these picks and come on with me.
Yeah, of course, you can follow these picks here on the episode, or you can follow them on Twitter, where Daniel posts those on our Twitter/X page, which is at Fulltime Roundup. You can also listen and follow along anywhere you get your podcast. Please download, like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating. It goes a long way for the show. And again, that Twitter handle or X handle is Fulltime Roundup. You can engage with us. And of course, we'll have our players of the week for Sunday's recap show. So please let us know any of the players that you've seen across the weekend who stood out to you. And we'll probably see if we can put them in our starting lineup. We'll see how they line up with what we pick. But Daniel, it's always a pleasure, even after a late, long week, getting off the plane to talk some football with you. And of course, I'm sure that we'll be talking about them all weekend in text message, and we'll recap it for all these wonderful listeners on Sunday, and we'll do it all again then. And until then, go watch some soccer, and like Daniel says, goals, goals, goals.
Gotta love it.